Okay, I'd like to call to order the Sumner City Council meeting. The date is July 6, 2020, and the time is 6 p.m. And before we get to the various items on the agenda, remind everybody that we're attending this meeting virtually. City Hall remains closed during Governor Inslee's stay home, stay healthy order, consequence of COVID-19 pandemic. And a reminder to any members of the public who are joining us to please mute your devices to eliminate the background noise. And remind everyone that the meeting is open to the public via the Zoom link. And the call-in information has been posted to the city's website and is in the council packet. And with that, I would ask everyone to please unmute their phones and then join me in the pledge the allegiance. Waiting for, okay. I pledge allegiance flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now I'd call on Art Spar for the invocation. Thank you, Art.
Hey, do I have to unmute or am I good?
You're good, Art.
Good, okay. Well, thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. All my years of ministry, this is the first time I have been asked to virtually pray for a virtual meeting, but here we go. Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the opportunity to serve you. We ask tonight for your protection from this virus that is so much affecting not only our community, but our nation and even the world. Lord, we pray especially for our first responders and the extra risk that they assume. We do pray for our mayor, council, and staff, and all of our city employees, especially at this time. Lord, we pray for our city, for our citizens, for our schools, for our churches, for our organizations and businesses, as we all try to cope with all of the things that are changing what is normal to us. Finally, Lord, we pray that you bless this meeting and ask that your will be done. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Art. You're very welcome to stick around if you want. Leave that to your discretion and probably more importantly, your spouse. So anyway, thank you. With that, we will move on to the roll call. And Michelle, would you please call the roll?
Potato. Councilmember Potato.
I think she just waved.
All right.
Trying to figure out her audio.
Brown.
Here.
Hayden.
Here.
Hochstetter.
Here.
Newman.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
Reed.
Here.
Okay, all council members are present. We move on to the consent agenda. Michelle, would you please read the consent agenda?
Approval of the minutes from the regular council meeting of June 15th, 2020 and June 22nd, 2020 study session. Item 2, approval of the checks and electronic payments in the amount of $1,687,782.87. Item 3, resolution number 1555, RCO grant authorization and application for Rainier View Covered Court. Item 4, ratification of track side alley conveyance from Bank of America. Item 5, Rainier View Park Covered Court 2021 through 2022 biannual budget reserve. Item 6, Loyalty Park Inclusive Playground Installation, Fuel Recreation LLC Contract Amendment number 1.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Are there any council members that would want to move anything from the consent agenda for separate consideration? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion by Deputy Mayor Hayden to approve the consent agenda?
Yes, I move we accept the consent agenda as written.
Could I get a seconded by Councilmember Reed?
I second that.
Okay, all those in favor of adopting the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, all those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The consent agenda is adopted. We'll now move on to public hearing. I think this is the first time we've actually had a public hearing virtually. And as a reminder to the participants here, this is a virtual meeting, so you're going to have to use the tools that we have at our disposal to testify. If you want to provide testimony during the public hearing, I would ask that you use the raise your hand feature on the Zoom call by going to the participant tab at the bottom of your screen. And if you click on that, you will see a hand raise feature, and then we know that you want to testify. If you're calling through on a phone, please press *9 on your telephone. If you're attending via Zoom, you have the option of being seen through your computer camera. If you don't want to be on camera, please disable your video. If you wish to be on camera, there'll be a slight pause after I call your name. And please begin your testimony by stating your name and address for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak. So with all that, I will open the hearing at 6:07, and I would call on Assistant City Attorney Christy Palmer to introduce the topic of tonight's public hearing, which has to do with the petition to vacate right-of-way at Pacific Avenue and Camry Way. Christy.
Good evening. This public hearing is required by RCW 3579030 for a petition to vacate a portion of city right-of-way. I will attempt to share my screen so you can all see what we're talking about. So the right-of-way that's subject of this petition is near Cannery Way Bridge. It's on the east side of Pacific Avenue. It's represented in this photo by the shaded area. That shaded area is approximately 12,000 square feet of unimproved land that was not needed for our bridge project. And so the city right now has no further need of this land. If vacated, this property would become part of the abuttal property that's right here along the waterfront. This is the White River. And that parcel is actually owned by the petitioner. So the notice for this public hearing was given according to state law. We've received no written comments other than an email, I believe, that was received by council this afternoon. The next time that council will see this issue after our public hearing today is at the next regular council meeting, July 20th, when it will be before council for a vote.
Okay, that it, Christy?
Yes.
Okay. Could you maybe get rid of the screen so then I have a little wider access?
Sure.
There we go. Okay, with that, I would ask if there's any member of the public that would like to address the council on this issue. I'll ask again, any member of the public that would like to address the council on this particular issue. Okay, seeing and hearing none, I would then close the public hearing at 6:09. Now we're going to move on to regular business and to be under unfinished business, and we have ordinance number 2737, asphalt batch plant zoning code text amendment. And I would ask Deputy Mayor Hayden for a motion.
Yes, I move to approve ordinance number 2737 asphalt batch plant zoning code text amendment.
Okay, thank you. Could I get Councilmember Brown with the second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I would call on Community Development Director Ryan Windish.
Thank you, Mayor. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Pugh and members of the City Council. Before I get started in the details of the agenda bill, there was a couple of things that I wanted to clarify with regards to the Corliss Resources property and when it was originally included in the East Sumner Neighborhood Plan area. It's been mentioned a few times that it was a mistake or an oversight to have it included in the 2015 update to the East Sumner Neighborhood Plan. But in reality, it's actually been, the Corliss property has actually been included in the East Sumner Neighborhood Plan since its very first draft in 1997 and when it was first adopted in 2001. So and then of course the Corliss property was annexed in 2003. So it was not a mistake or an oversight for it to be included in the 2015 update to that plan. Granted, there could have been more discussion about that use as a resource, as a mineral resource area. However, I do have to say that, you know, the staff and the community acknowledged that Corliss Resources is there and has been there for decades, and in the planning process, it was anticipated to be there for decades to come. So it wasn't a forgotten thing, and it was, as I mentioned, included in the boundaries prior to 2015. So before you tonight is the zoning code text amendment, ordinance number 2737, and would amend the zoning code to allow asphalt batch plant facilities with performance standards, conditions, as accessory uses to a mineral extraction use. And these facilities could be permitted in a mineral resource protection area, which are limited areas within the city with historical and protected mineral extraction uses. This zoning code text amendment was initiated by Corliss Resources to allow for an asphalt batch plant facility accessory to their current mining and concrete batching operations. Some members of the City Council and public have voiced concerns with the potential environmental, traffic, and health impacts related to this type of facility. And the city hired and obtained 3 experts to develop reports which show that with appropriate conditions placed upon the operation, no significant impacts will be present. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on March 5th, 2020, and on June 4th, 2020, they voted 3-2 on a recommendation to approve the attached ordinance. I want to remind the council that there is currently an interim development regulation in place until July 20 that prohibits new asphalt batch plants in all zones that they were previously permitted. The LDR, the RP, the resource protection, and the M2 zones. If the council approves the recommended ordinance, it will take the place of the RDR, requiring asphalt batch plants to obtain a conditional use permit prior to being allowed to be built. If the council rejects the recommended ordinance and zoning code changes and the IDR expires, the code will return to its status before the interim development regulations, in which asphalt batching is outright permitted in the M2 zone and is a conditional use permit in the LDR and RP zones. So if the intent of a majority of the council is to prohibit asphalt batch facilities citywide, then the new ordinance will be required. The City Council over the last year and a half or so has heard from citizens and Corliss Resources on a number of occasions, and also had a study session on June 22nd discussing comments, asking lots of questions. And so tonight before you is this ordinance, and staff's recommendation is a motion to approve ordinance 2737, adopting the zoning code text amendments related to asphalt batch plants. That concludes my remarks. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Is that a, see, I saw, is that a hand raised? Thank you, Charlotte. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry, I was missing the actual raising hand function, so I went for the visual effect.
It worked.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I would actually like to move to postpone this motion indefinitely, please.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to postpone indefinitely. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to postpone this issue indefinitely. Councilmember Newman, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, please. Thank you. Our comprehensive and neighborhood plans are supposed to determine how we write our city code and not the other way around. Right now, our neighborhood and comprehensive plans include a mineral resource protection area with a general commercial zone and an urban village overlay on top of that mineral resource protection zone. One of these designations is either being, in my opinion, disingenuous or dishonest about the other. And we owe it to everyone involved to clarify our intentions, plans, and impacts for this area and surrounding areas one way or the other. I have no predictions for how our plans and zones will be reconciled, but I do feel strongly that we have a responsibility to address these underlying problems. And my fear is that a vote tonight will let us off the hook in fixing these issues, and we will continue to run into conflict. So because of that, I would like for us to postpone the vote until we transparently make clear what our intentions are in East Sumner.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Newman. Other comments by other council members? Go ahead, Mayor Hayden. Then Councilmember Peterson.
Okay, me. I just want to say that I don't think that this action will accomplish a thing. In almost 13 years of city government, I've never seen a zoning code text amendment treated this way. I think it's been very unfair to the applicants. With that being said, I'll be voting yes for this proposal just to make sure the applicant gets a fair vote in the future.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you. I completely support Councilmember Newman's intent to look at this process. I think that it has been challenged, and we need to be clear as a council and a city on what methods we use to express what we're trying to achieve. I don't think that this is the way to do it tonight. Based on this project, I think this is a process question more than it is a particular project question. But I appreciate Councilmember Newman bringing this up again, and I hope we continue to discuss it because we need to.
Thank you, Councilmember Peterson. Councilmember Reed.
Bear with me. I'm trying to get my.
It's working,
Sorry.
Patrick.
Okay, I wanted to make sure I had it backwards. Thought I was still on mute. I just had a comment to make. Last year, I was opposed to the underlining zoning issues that did go to a vote because I thought it should have been addressed in the east side and comprehensive plans instead of in pieces. I also had unanswered questions at the time regarding the amendment request itself and many of the pieces that went along with it. A lot of those questions have been answered, but some still have not. And primarily because there's just not enough core information available, which for me, that kind of makes it hard to make an educated opinion on a particular issue. But as concerning as anything else has been the outpouring of opposition from citizens, which I'm still receiving today. So my position hasn't changed from last year, and a large amount of citizens have made their opinion very clear to me.
Okay, other comments, other council members? Melanie.
I have a question actually about this for Ryan. Is that allowed?
Sure.
Okay, great. Ryan, I just want to make sure I'm clear about something that you said that I haven't heard said this way before, that a vote no tonight on, not on Charlotte's and what she's talking about right now, but later, would in fact allow asphalt batch plants. Is that what I heard?
Correct. That's what you heard.
But voting yes does allow it also.
Correct. So the ordinance provides for a definition for mineral extraction use, and it clearly allows for asphalt batch plants as accessory to mineral extraction uses. And then on top of all that, though, are a number of conditions and restrictions and performance standards that would come with any asphalt batch plant facility. If it were to be built at Corliss Resources site, if it were to be built in the M2 zone, or if it were to be built on the other mineral resource protection area in town up on East Valley Highway. So to say no to the ordinance dials us back to, and the IDR were to expire, it dials us back to a position where, for example, in low density residential zones, there would be no clear definition for a mineral extraction use. And so then you rely back on state law, honestly, for what is surface mining? What does it mean? What does it include? And the answer is you could come in and apply for a conditional use permit for a mineral extraction use to do an asphalt batch plant. And the city really doesn't have anything to fall back on except to say, yeah, that's part of a mineral extraction use, and we'll work through a conditional use permit to allow it.
Okay. Melanie, you're still there, not muted. So I just wanted, there was a response. Do you have another question or?
No, that's it. Sorry,
Okay.
my internet was catching Ryan up.
Oh, got it. Okay. Councilmember Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is also for Ryan. I wanted to clarify, and I think we've asked and answered this several meetings ago. In regard to the surface mining permit through the state and the inclusion of asphalt batching is actually an accessory amendment to a surface mining permit, isn't it?
It is. When you read the definition for surface mining operations in the RCW, it includes asphalt batching. We have been told by the Department of Natural Resources that at the end of the day, the city can zone. We can zone it and adopt a regulation that restricts asphalt batching, but absent clarity in our code as to when asphalt batching is allowed or not, we have to go back to what's allowed in the state law.
So in the state law, though, wouldn't an amendment to Corliss's existing permit be needed in order to add asphalt batching as an accessory use because it's not in the existing permit?
No, it's what they actually have is a reclamation plan and permit, and it does not speak to, nor does it regulate asphalt patching.
Okay. I may have received some conflicting info from the state, but that was my big concern, is whether or not, in addition to everything else, if Corliss would have needed an amendment to their existing permitting to add the asphalt, or if it would just be, as far as the state's concerned, if it's just rolled in, if the zoning permitted it.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilmember Hochstetter.
Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted.
This is for Mr. Windisch. Mr. Windisch, if another applicant was to apply in somewhere else in the town, wouldn't we be able to clear up our code or make adjustments to our code just as we're trying to do now?
If the ordinance doesn't pass and the IDR expires, an asphalt batch plant could be applied for in the M2 zone where it's outright permitted. It's not even a conditional use in that zone currently. Or they could apply on either one of the mineral resource protection areas, and they could still apply for a conditional use permit. The only avenue we would have if we chose to do this would be before, if we knew the permit was coming and before it vested, we decided to pass interim development regulations to put a moratorium back in place that prohibited them. I have a feeling the city attorney would not like that option, but that would be the only thing that we could try and do to stop an asphalt plant coming in before it was vested as a permit.
But isn't M2 the manufacturing industrial zone?
Correct, and asphalt plants are outright permitted today in that zone.
Yeah, and in my mind, that's why we do zoning, and that's why we put those kind of industries in those sections. And this is another section of town that we had other hopes and have other neighborhoods close to. So I don't see that as a threat because it goes into where we had planned ahead of time to make that kind of industry available to people. So thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions by council members? Okay, I do not see any, so I'm going to ask Michelle to call the roll. And what you're voting on, if you vote yes, it's to say yes to a motion to postpone this item indefinitely. And if you vote no, it's to not postpone it indefinitely. So just want to make sure you're clear when you're voting. So an aye would be to postpone indefinitely, and a nay would to not postpone indefinitely. With that, Michelle, would you please call the roll?
Peterson,
No.
Brown,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Hayden,
Yes.
Hochstetter,
Oh, no,
Potato,
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion to postpone indefinitely is approved by, what is it, 5-2. Okay. Just so the council knows, as part of your discussion has gotten into, there are implications with postponing this item. And so we will be scheduling a study session this Wednesday at 5 o'clock to cover the implications of this so that, excuse me, what is it? When is it?
All right, Mayor, it's at 6 o'clock.
Excuse me, boy. That would have gotten people there real early at 6 o'clock to talk about the motion to talk about the IDR and when it expires and the implications in moving forward. So either Jason or Andrea, any comments on that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just one thing I wanted to follow up with for the public that's listening in tonight. The call-in information will be on our website by midday tomorrow, as well as all the proper meeting notifications for this.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Okay, that being the case, we're going to move on to public comment. Just like we've done on other items, the public was encouraged to submit any comments that they had to the city clerk by email before tonight's meeting. In this case, I'm talking about comments about items that are not on the agenda under the public comment section. And so I would ask first, Michelle, were there any emails received for public comment for items not on the agenda?
No.
Okay. Then I would ask that if there's anybody that is listening or watching have any comments they would like to make with regards to items that are not on the agenda. And if you do, I need to have you raise your hand using the raise feature under the participants tab at the bottom of the Zoom menu or by pressing *9 on your telephone. So is there anybody that would like to make any comments to the city council regarding any issue that is not on the city council agenda? I'm counting on you, Jason, or to see if there's any out there. Okay. That being the case, Michelle, you don't have to read the instructions. I know you're disappointed. And we will move on to new business. And the first one is ordinance number 2738, which is repealing Sumner Municipal Code 9.06, false alarms. Can I get a motion by Councilmember Peterson?
Yes, I move we approve ordinance number 2738 to repeal Sumner Municipal Code 9.06, false alarms.
Thank you very much. Could I get a second by Councilmember Potato?
I second it.
Okay, I would call on Chief Muerkey.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Tonight before you is Agenda Bill 20-082 and a corresponding ordinance 2738. Share my screen for the agenda bill. This particular ordinance was actually first adopted by your predecessor councils, ordinance number 1568 back in September 21st of 1992. And it created a fire false alarm ordinance in the city of Sumner, which back then was serviced by a city ran fire department. And it primarily did two things. It created a regulatory scheme for reporting and determining preventability and assessing fines for false fire alarm responses that fell on the burden of the fire chief to determine and on the city finance department to bill. And it also prohibited intentionally transmitting false alarms or tampering with fire alarm systems and equipment. And the next matter is our city intruder alarms. And when I started to look into this matter, talked to the fire chief and Chuck King, the fire marshal, and this has not been done at all to anyone's knowledge since the 2007 when East Pierce County annexed the city of Sumner into their fire service district. So, and furthermore, intentionally transmitting a false fire alarm and or tampering with fire alarms or firefighter equipment is already prescribed as prohibited under RCW 9.40.100, which the city adopts by reference. So basically the bottom line is that this ordinance in the subsequent chapter of Sumner Municipal Code 9.06 appears obsolete and no longer necessary for the health and welfare of the citizens of the city of Sumner. And it was presented first to public safety on June 17th. And the committee members agreed this should be brought to the council and adopted.
Thanks, Chief. Okay, any members of the council have any questions or comments on this issue? Okay, seeing none, are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this issue? And I would remind you to either use your participant button at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and use the hand raise feature, or if by phone, by *9. Any members of the public would like to comment on this issue? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Michelle, would you please call the roll?
Potato,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Hayden,
Yes.
Hochstetter,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Okay, the ordinance number 2738 is adopted. And we move on to ordinance number 2739, repealing Sumner Municipal Code 9.10, intruder alarms. Could I get a motion by Councilmember Peterson?
Sure. I move that we approve ordinance number 2739 to repeal Sumner Municipal Code 9.10, intruder alarms.
Thank you very much. Could I get a second by Councilmember Brown? Okay, again, I call on Chief Muerkey, who can expand on his comments from the last time.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight before you is an ordinance 2739 asking the council to repeal what was formerly passed by City Council in 2001, which is ordinance number 1967, that created and established Sumner Municipal Code Chapter 9.10, which is the city's intruder alarm, false alarm ordinance that primarily did three things. It required premise owners to obtain an alarm permit. And two, it created a regulation scheme of fining premise owners who accrued 3 or more false alarms in a single year. Since its adoption in July of 2001, the city has been actively managing this ordinance as written as adopted by the council. And we were using a free software program called FAPS, which is False Alarm Analysis Program software that we were able to obtain from the city of Federal Way in 2002. And to the chagrin of our IT department, we limped that along through, I don't know how many Microsoft Windows upgrades and everything else. The vendor for that software ceased to exist some years ago. And a number of cities have been using this, Puyallup, Des Moines, Enumclaw. So we relied on IT departments, everything to kind of keep it going and limping along. And finally, when we upgraded to a different version of Windows, it was no longer supported and wouldn't work. So what that caused us is the city and IT to go out and try to source another vendor. And the city only averages about 45 or so false alarms a year that are actually determined to be false alarms that would be subject to reporting under this ordinance. And so we're basically, there's not enough to warrant a third-party vendor taking over, and there's really not enough volume to warrant the city maintaining its own internal tracking and billing and invoicing mechanism. So what I did is I looked back over a 3-year period of time that we've had this, we've been both enforcing and not enforcing the current ordinance, and found no substantial difference or effect in the number or frequency of false alarms. So essentially, I don't believe that having the ordinance in place with administrative penalties to premise owners is having the desired effect of reducing false alarms. We've seen a modest increase in false alarms over the years, but that's more a factor of our build out in our commercial and industrial. So for those reasons, I'm asking the council to repeal false alarm ordinance under SMC 9.10. This also went to your Public Safety Committee on June 17th and got a unanimous approval to move forward.
Hey, thank you very much, Chief. Questions, comments, council members? Questions or comments? I see no hands raised. Okay. That being the case, is there any member of the public that is either viewing or listening in that would like to address this issue? Any member of the public that would like to address this issue? Seeing and hearing none. Michelle, would you please call the roll?
Hochstetter,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Potato,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Hayden,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Ordinance number 2739 is adopted unanimously. Now we'll move on to resolution number 1557, COVID-19 Utility Customer Support Plan. Can I get a motion by Councilmember Reed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move we approve resolution 1557, authorizing the mayor to develop and administer a COVID-19 utility customer support plan.
I second.
Thank you, Councilmember Reed. Could I get a second by Councilmember Newman?
I second.
Thank you very much. I would call on Chief Financial Officer Cassandra Raymond. Cassandra.
Hello. So I'm going to switch over to a slideshow quickly so we can take a look at the COVID-19 Utility Customer Support Plan. So this really is in response to the Governor's Proclamation 20-23 coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. The original proclamation was issued on March the 18th. It's since been extended several times, with the most latest extension on July the 2nd. What this proclamation does is it prohibits utility providers, including municipal water and sewer providers, from disconnecting residential services for non-payment, refusing to reconnect those residential customers who are disconnected for non-payment, and also prohibits the charging of any late fees or reconnection fees for utility services. On the May 29th extension, there was an additional paragraph added into the governor's proclamation that requires utilities to formally adopt and develop a COVID-19 customer support program. This is something that our utility department has always provided informally. We've always worked with our customer base as much as possible to ensure that our customers had access to essential services. But what we realized was we needed to really formalize and memorialize that program, also taking into account some of the requirements in the governor's proclamation. Some of those guidelines include adopting the customer support plan via a public process, which is here at council. The July 2nd extension also extended the due date for our customer support plan to August 1st. It was originally July 10th. And then this most recent extension also named the Department of Health as the review agency that will be reviewing the customer support programs that are developed by utility providers. So currently, the prohibitions under the governor's proclamation are effective through August 1st. To be honest, we don't have any word on if there will be any additional extensions, and if so, how long those will be. February of 2020 was the last city cycle for service disconnections. That's important just to keep in mind because we do have customers that we're seeing the utility balances creep up. So this is something that we want to be sure that we're working with our community and working with our citizens to develop a payment process and a payment plan option so that we can work in partnership with our citizens and our customers. Part of the utility support plan that's being proposed includes a section on customer notification. As far as our billing notices go, there's a couple of different ways that we're communicating and engaging with our customers. We've included flyers in all of our regular utility bills, making sure that our customers know of options they have to reach out to work with us on their utility bills. In addition, while normally we would be doing shutoff notices for those customers that are delinquent by a certain period of time, although we're not doing shutoffs and shutoff notices, we've replaced those with letters to each of our customers who may be in a delinquent status, letting them know that they have an outstanding utility bill and giving them the resources, including an encouragement to contact the city to work out a payment plan and other resources they may be available. What we don't want to have happen is we come out of the pandemic, we come out of the governor's proclamation. We don't want any of our customers to be surprised by their balances. And we want to be sure that we're working with them sooner rather than later. We're also providing notification on our City of Sumner website, including the verbiage that we see here that relates specifically to the governor's proclamation. And then our City of Sumner e-news. We're trying to make sure that we're getting the message out as much as possible, that we do have some options and that we're willing to work with our customers and are encouraging that communication sooner rather than later. On the policy that we've developed, what we're doing is we're adding in an option for our customers for deferred payment arrangements. There is an application required. It's a very simple one-page application. And it's asking our customers to, number one, provide a statement that they've been negatively financially impacted by the pandemic. Also recognize and acknowledge that they have received a copy of the policy and recognizing that they've been advised of other resources that are available to them. We're offering a 2-month payment deferral. During that deferral, there'll be no late fees or shutoffs. And really that 2-month payment deferral is to make sure our customers have a comfort window to reach out to other agencies and other programs that may be able to offer utility assistance. After that 2-month payment deferral, we have the option of a 6-month payment arrangement. And really what that is, it's giving our customers an extended period of time to work on bringing their account balances current. And then during that period, there will be no late fees imposed and no shutoffs. As long as the payment arrangements are successfully completed, any late fees that would have been imposed during that period would be waived. We'll also be in that policy communicating the various financial support programs that we can refer to. Although we are not by code able to forgive or waive utility balances, we are, of course, partnering with the Family Center in the Sumner School District for rent, mortgage, and utility assistance. So that will be our first resource that we are helping our customers be directed to. That has a total city funding of $60,000. And then we also will be referring customers out to the Department of Commerce Cash Assistance Program, the 211 United Way Worldwide, and then local organizations, both service organizations as well as churches. And those are things that we've always done. And so we'll be continuing to do that as well. And happy to answer any questions.
Okay, council members have any questions of Cassandra? Councilmember Potato.
Yeah. So how long will this program be available, and is it available now? You know, how soon can people apply for some of those funds?
As far as the Sumner Cares program?
Yes.
Answer that, Cassandra. So the money that was allocated by the city out of our CARES funding has to be expended by the end of October. And then that gives us 90 days to seek reimbursement, or excuse me, 60 days to seek reimbursement from Department of Commerce. That's the granting agency's requirement, not an arbitrary number that we set.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, members of the council? Okay, seeing none, any members of the public that would like to comment on this issue? Any members of the public that would like to comment on this issue? Okay, seeing and hearing none, Michelle, would you please call the roll?
Newman,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Potato,
Yes.
Hayden,
Yes.
Hochstetter.
Yes.
Okay, resolution is passed unanimously. That brings us on to reports by the city council. I'm just going to pick them off right off the screen. Councilmember Reed.
Nothing other than I hope everyone had a fun and safe 4th of July weekend, and I'm looking forward to getting back to work in my office this week.
Wow, a commute. Councilmember Brown.
Nothing, thanks.
Councilmember Hochstetter.
I'm hoping that next year that they'll be able to have the normal fireworks, large displays, because this neighborhood's full of bombs and all that are just a little bit harder to take. So hopefully, I didn't know I enjoyed those big gatherings so much until now. So anyways, let's get back to normal. Thank you.
Amen on that one, Councilmember Hochstetter. Councilmember Newman.
Having to spend multiple days in the hospital with my dad and going through screening each time has made me even more deeply appreciative of those who are wearing their masks. Thank you.
Amen to that one too. Councilmember Potato.
Yeah, I was just going to say something about wearing masks as much as possible. It may not be comfortable, but it does make a difference. So, but other than that, I don't have anything else.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Hayden.
I have nothing tonight, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Peterson.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay, move on to reports by the city administrator. Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two things tonight. First up is the Planning Commission meeting on July 16th at 6 p.m. Just so everybody knows, we're going to start talking about the comp plan amendments. We'll be starting with mostly focusing on the text amendments to start with, related to the innovation district, the town center policies, sign code, off-street parking, noise ordinance, and other miscellaneous cleanups. We will also be introducing the topic of Knutson Farms and their proposal to rezone from low density residential to medium density residential. This is just an early discussion to start gaining planning commission input. And that information will be posted the week prior, the full agenda, as well as the Zoom meeting information. Second, I want to publicly thank our staff for their adaptability as we continue to navigate phase 2. They're continuing to provide excellent service, might be differently in a virtual format. I can certainly assure you that work has not slowed down at all. I'm hearing from all of our staff members that they are as busy, if not busier, than they were a year ago. So I just want to thank them for that and their hard work right now.
Thank you very much, Jason. I would echo that. When we first started this whole thing, I thought, God, there goes the productivity. But people have really adapted well, and I can attest to it just from the number of invites I get, number of meetings in. Actually, I think there's certain efficiencies that have come out of this process in terms of how business is done versus how we were conducting it before. But I agree with Councilmember Hochstetter. It would be nice to get back to some sense of normalcy. Along the mask issue, if you follow the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department case count, yesterday it was below the 60 mark. Remember, we started to get into phase 2. It had to meet the criteria of 25 cases per 100,000 over a 2-week average. Once we opened everything up and got into phase 2, we are now at 63.6 cases per 100,000 per 2-week average. And it has been steeply climbing as people go about doing things, quote, normally. And that's what happens, is you end up with a rapid increase of this virus. So I know it's tough for everybody to feel that they're mandated to put a mask on. As you saw my last letter, it's the right thing to do. It's the thing that will help our economy stay open. It'll help us to move forward with our economy, and it'll save lives. And so it's frustrating, but it's really necessary. And it'll be interesting to see in about a week and a half as to what this number does with the masking order coming down, as to whether it starts slowing down and maybe heading back in the right direction. But it is really bothersome. And yes, and Washington State's one of the better ones. Yes, the states are, the cases are in the increase, but not like some of the states where it's just gone crazy. So anyway, interesting, scary times. And we need to pull together to get out of this thing. Anyway, that's it. We do not have an executive session. As a reminder, I'll get the time right, Jason, 6 o'clock this Wednesday, we will have a study session. And with that, we'll call this meeting adjourned at 6:54. Thank you all. Be safe.